Hello, welcome and congratulations to all the competitors in the 2021 Nova Scotia Kiwanis Music Festival. I can't believe I'm saying that. 2021. Uh, First and foremost, I really like to thank the Kiwanis Music Festival for inviting me again as an adjudicator for this year. I've been an adjudicator in the past few festivals, and I've really enjoyed hearing all the young talent from my hometown. I really love doing this, and 2021 was definitely an exceptional year. Some very promising young fiddle players, and it was just really a pleasure to hear you all play. I really miss Halifax, Nova Scotia, and it's definitely been really nice to see some people from there. So definitely a very warming experience. Um, this is a really interesting year for the festival because I was looking at the adjudicator list, and believe it or not, another string adjudicator, Nanette Babineau, was actually my adjudicator when I was a youngster doing the festival. I don't know how many years back. Now she's still adjudicating, so that's really, really neat. Really great to see her on there. Also, shout out to Anthony Rosesco, who was doing, I think, the folk music classes, so big shout out to him as well. So without further ado, I would like to just again congratulate all you competitors. So again, some really great talent. I thought I would just make one video just to kind of talk about general comments to all the violinists and violists as well, and kind of covering a lot of material that us violinists share at all levels and all ages. Just to give you an example, some of the comments I think I had in my early years of the Nova Scotia Kiwanis Music Festival, which probably you'll hear in this comment sheet as well, are things I still think about today as a professional. Things about good rhythm, holding note values, intonation. Oh my God, it's amazing how some of the things that you work on as a youngster, you always work on as a professional. So I hope that with all these comments that none of you get discouraged. You should all feel reassured that even your adjudicator here still is practicing things that I did as a youngster. So it is a life pursuit, and it's a very very fulfilling one. So I'm very, very glad to be with you on this journey of pursuing high level of violin playing. Okay, so let's get started. I don't think I even mentioned my name is Marc Djokic, your adjudicator here for strings. So good to be here. Yeah, so my first comment is facing the camera. Now, I know that this is kind of an unusual circumstance for the festival because of COVID. We're having to videotape ourselves and submit videos. Well, actually, making videos and submitting videos is really nothing all that new. You'll find probably if you have to submit an application for summer music camp or any kind of summer programs, oftentimes they'll ask you to make a tape, sometimes an audio recording, but a lot of times actually now a lot of organizations want a videotape of yourself playing. So this is kind of something to get in the habit of doing. Probably we're doing it more and more because of the pandemic, but it's pretty simple, and I have a few little tips and ideas on how to make that a more successful experience. On some of your adjudication comment sheets, I mentioned to some of you just about how to face the camera when playing, and I also mentioned that I was probably going to be mentioning it to a lot of people, and that's totally okay. So when we set up the camera to play in front of it, make sure that the scroll of the violin is, if you can imagine, if I'm holding the violin like this, that the scroll is not facing the camera. Otherwise, all I see is, well, the front of your face and the scroll in front of it. Rather, face stage left, just so, I'm going to look at my computer screen, make sure this looks okay. Yeah, just so we see kind of a side angle of the violin, right? Actually, maybe I'll grab a, because this is kind of a homemade casual video I'm doing. I'll grab a violin. Yeah, so this is like probably a little bit farther than this. This is the angle we should be seeing. So not this, but rather this, right? So basically the sound is being projected out, and I can see a clear image of the bow on the string like this, and a very clear image of the left hand position. Oh my god, now I'm checking if mine looks okay. So basically, with this, I can see everything, your entire setup on the fiddle or the viola, and then I can kind of check everything out that way. Plus the sound comes out this way as well. So we're not really thinking of playing in front of the camera any different than we would an audience. Just pretend the camera is the audience and approach the camera that way, okay? And it'll look and sound better this way. I'll just put this down over here without, again, knocking it over. Great, okay, so let's go here. What's the next thing? Oh, yeah. Yeah, kind of a general comment I made to a few of you was about picking a comfortable tempo for your whatever piece you might be playing, a sonata, concerto, showpiece. It's always good to pick a tempo that, again, you're comfortable with, that you can hold steady. It's another important thing. Of course, with some variations in tempo if need be, rubato, all those things for some of the more advanced classes. And, you know, things like slowing down, speeding up. So it's good to pick an appropriate tempo also with what's indicated in the start of the piece, allegro, largo, within, you know, within reason. You know, we want to kind of stick with those indicators, but at the same time, pick a tempo that's comfortable for us for the purpose of holding the tempo somewhat steady. And so that was one of my grading criteria, is really listening out and looking out for that. So do practice with a metronome when we're preparing these pieces, putting the kind of the final finishing touches on them, and that should be good. This actually also really helps out with making very precise rhythms when need be. It's another thing I was kind of listening out for. But again, things I still work on as a professional, so you better believe that I still practice with a metronome, especially being a concertmaster of an orchestra. Keeping a steady tempo is very important, so I never stopped picking on this with my own playing since, I don't know, 10 years old, 11 years old, so welcome to the club. Okay, note values. Yes, this has a little bit to do with tempo. I made a few comments just about holding note values for their entire length, and oftentimes this would have been a half note or a dotted half note. So make sure that some of these kind of ending notes, end of a cadence, end of a phrase, if we're holding a half note, a dotted half note, make sure we don't kind of cut or clip the ends of those notes. I want to hear nice full half notes, dotted half notes. So really go through the music again and make sure that you're holding those kind of longer notes for their entire value. Okay. Bow use, yes. This is another thing I commented on a lot, and I'll actually come back to bow use a little bit later on because there's many kind of levels of bow usage. A lot of you had a really good bow control. That's one thing I really noticed. And another really nice thing, I saw like a lot of very healthy amounts of bow being used. So this was really great. And not in all cases would you want to use an kind of over amount of bow, but definitely there was some very, very courageous use of bow amounts. So that was great. Bow speed, bow weight, a lot of these things really affect the way you'll sound on the violin. So sometimes bow speeds were a little bit slow and sluggish, and sometimes that made for a less energetic performance. So in order to make a piece sound a little bit more energetic, if it is, you know, in the style of perhaps a dance, like a jig, then of course we'd want to use a little bit more animated bow. Actually, I use that comment a lot, animated bow, and that really means, you know, quicker bow changes, more bow speed. This really kind of helps with the sound. And also bow weight on the string. We also want to try to get a little bit more bow weight in the string when we need to get a better sound. So if your comments include any of those key words, you'll kind of know what I'm talking about. Dynamics are something that I was really listening out for kind of at all the levels, all the grades. I like to hear definitely a difference between like fortissimo, forte, mezzo forte, piano, pianissimo, and I know that when we're memorizing a piece, we also have to memorize the dynamics. So when we do practice our music with, or do practice our music with the sheet music in front of us, make sure that we really exaggerate those dynamics so that at the same time we learn the notes, we also memorize the dynamics. And good news is that when we're doing orchestra auditions later on in life or any other kind of audition, oftentimes jurors will really pay attention to dynamics. So even myself, kind of after school, I was doing auditions. Yeah, of course, jurors would always listen to real noticeable differences between those small dynamics. So take the time now to really perfect that and go through your music again, look at those dynamics. Yeah, left hand is another thing. A lot of you actually had a really excellent left hand technique. Very, very impressed a lot of the time about some really, really good left hands. Very, very well trained. Got to be some good teachers there as well, I am sure. And with the left hand, I made a few comments about that. Just sometimes having to do with kind of in the more advanced grades, shifting and reaching, things like that. Also, coordination with the bow, and that I'll actually getting back to bow use. Sometimes if we had a little bit of a sluggish bow, an unanimated bow stroke, sometimes there wasn't very good coordination between the left hand and the bow. So make sure that if we have a piece that has a very kind of dance feel, we have a very energetic bow, make sure that the left hand is very active as well. We want to make sure that both are kind of in the same style. If we're playing like Largo or Andante, a nice slow bow, make sure that the finger action is a little bit more matching that. Kind of a simple sort of coordination thing. So fast on both sides or slow on both sides. You can think of it that way. Let's see, looking on ahead here. Oh yeah, yeah, a lot of times, like, again, as I was saying, we had a lot of really good left hand techniques. So I was very impressed by that. Some of the times the bow wasn't always matching the left hand or representing what the left hand was doing. And oftentimes the bow might have been a little light on the string. So even though the left hand might have been doing a fantastic job, if we don't keep the bow on the string, if we, for example, lift the bow too much or release the bow too much, we don't really hear what the left hand is doing. So if you think a good comparison to that would be if you're playing like an electric guitar or something like that. It's not an acoustic instrument. It has basically no sound when you pluck the strings on it, or an electric violin for that matter. Basically, the amplifier would be like the bow, right? So even though the left hand is doing a great job, if we don't amplify the string with the bow, then the audience will never know how great a left hand you have. So your left hand really depends on what your bow is doing. So think about that, talk about that with your teacher. That's kind of one of the first epiphanies I had as a young violinist, was really thinking about my contact with the bow on the string and really keeping it on the string. And I noticed that when I did that, it really amplified what my left hand was doing. And that's, again, just one of those things that develops over time. Again, as a professional, I always think about my bow contact to the string. So yeah, and that definitely always equals great sound quality. Okay, now kind of some fun topics here. Moving on to some different repertoires. Oh yeah, some of you played movements from Bach, and now I know when usually the solo partitas and the sonatas have their own challenges. Technically they're really demanding, and it really kind of stretches and pushes and plays with the left hand in all sorts of ways. Oh my God, is it ever? Now I know that sometimes, because of the difficulty of these movements, sometimes we'll take a little time, maybe sometimes too much time, on some of the rhythms. With Bach, the solo partitas and sonatas, it's always good to really learn these movements in strict rhythm first. I always learn them in really strict rhythm, and then from there I kind of free up the timing. It's always good to keep a pulse. You never want to have a very varying pulse, so you want to stick somewhat to a very steady pulse and tempo, because that's really music, right? Music really is supposed to have a pulse, almost like a heartbeat. So in some of these all these movements, you want to make sure that we really learn them with a steady pulse, and then we can kind of play around the beat. But I wouldn't take so much time so that you can't recognize the rhythms. That's basically what I'm saying, is that some of the rhythms were, so that's in some cases were quite far from what they actually should have been. And rhythms are actually very expressive. Sometimes the way Bach wrote the rhythms, I mean, it's quite beautiful the way they are. So it's good to stick with what's in the music, and then if need be, we can sort of embellish things or bring out certain notes. But definitely, yeah, stick more to a steady pulse with Bach. That's one of the things I was listening to for that. So those who uh, stuck more to a steady pulse definitely did better in that category. Okay, concertos. Yes. So now a concerto, of course, it's a solo piece with accompaniment. You can actually say accompaniment. In this case, it's the piano that's playing the accompaniment part. So now with a concerto, we do always have to project, because with an orchestra, it'll always be overpowering. So one of the things I was listening for with the concertos was definitely a nice alternative style to all the other music in terms of projection and really playing out. So, for example, when it's marked piano or mezzo piano, be sure not to play too soft or flotando. We want to make sure that it still remains, even though the dynamic is soft, that we still have some core or at least a healthy sound. That's kind of a general rule for the concertos, and also a pulse and steady rhythm, because in this case the piano is trying to accompany us, and we really kind of need to set our tempos. All right, now concert pieces. Yes, this is a little bit more free from the musician standpoint. This is a chance for you to really show your style, in the style of the composer that's writing it, but a chance for you to really do something unique and personal. So whether it's taking a chance on a quicker tempo or having more extreme ups and downs dynamically, I was really listening for something very, very personal with some of the show pieces. So whenever we have a concert piece that's not a concerto or sonata, be sure to really make it something that will separate you from the other competitors, and really kind of bring out some of the characteristics of that piece. So I was really looking. Probably my criteria is more in the musical realm rather than the technical realm, although showpieces are very technical, of course. Oh yeah, and now with vibrato, in regards to vibrato, obviously vibrato is just a wonderful thing we have on violin. It's what I really wanted to learn vibrato early on when I was a violinist. And so for some of the more advanced strings, if you're just starting to use vibrato, then congratulations, just keep working at it. It's definitely, again, a lifelong pursuit. So for some of the more advanced players that have been using vibrato for a long time, make sure that probably a safer thing to do is to vibrate more continuously or constantly. One popular comment I made was, don't all of a sudden stop your vibrato. I never like to say vibrate all the time vibrato. But one thing for sure is never to be vibrating and then just all of a sudden stop the vibrato. A better idea is to actually kind of taper the vibrato, slow it down to almost nothing, and then bring it back slowly. That's one way we can kind of play with vibrato speed and width, but never because maybe a note is hard to just stop the vibrato. That's especially when playing something that's very singing. It's easy to continue the vibrato. So I was really listening for that for those of you who had a more advanced, from what I could tell, vibrato. So yeah, so just don't stop it abruptly, because otherwise it sounds like, right? Oh yeah, and one great thing about playing collaborative music, whether you feel you're being accompanied, or whether you're doing a sonata and it's really a collaborative effort, one thing I was impressed with was a lot of you were able to really show your entrance and give a clear sign to the pianist that was playing with you. This is great, of course, at the start of a piece, or to end a piece to show either a rit or a cello rondo, whatever you might be doing. But yeah, definitely communication with the other musician on stage. That's I saw actually some of the lower grade violinists actually doing really wonderful signs, and that was really great. I remember when as a youngster, it took me a while to actually start to move my violin to show a sign. And of course, as a concertmaster now, I'm having to lead and really move a lot to show entrances. So, again, lifelong pursuit. So yeah, with signs and cues, this is one thing that we can do. So I did make one comment for a few of you that, when before we were starting some of our pieces, we would bring our violin up and keep our bow on the string for a long period of time. You'll know who you are with the comment sheet. You'll have read it. So I don't really have too much anything against that, waiting with our bow on the string. But if we're waiting for too long, and I mean like 10-15 seconds, then it's not such a, how can I say, great thing to prepare for an entrance, because it's actually quite tiring to hold this position with the bow on the string, and oftentimes we'll get a very rough start. So what I would really recommend doing is really learning, again, like if the piano is playing an introduction, to really learn the piano part and really get to know where your entrance is, so that with plenty of time you can put up the violin slowly, bring the bow up to the string, give a cue, and start. So not to really to keep the bow on the string for a prolonged period of time. I think you'll be more comfortable kind of developing that skill. I know it feels a little bit safer to wait there with the bow on the string. You can't possibly miss your entrance, but I promise you it's more comfortable to really kind of pace yourself before you come in and set up everything gradually instead of waiting with the bow on the string. And that's about all the comments I had. If you had any mistakes or memory slips, it's not worth commenting on, because that's just things we have to work on in terms of better preparing for these pieces. And personally, I find playing in front of the camera is sometimes a bit more nerve-wracking than playing in front of a live audience. So sometimes that could have changed the way you felt with your performance. So there's all sorts of different variables, but the more you do this, the more you get used to it. I know I'm getting used to it, doing a lot of live web stream concerts, so I kind of feel that we're all in the same boat that way. So definitely a learning curve for it, but we're all kind of growing and learning this new skill together, which is playing in front of cameras a lot. So, and I think a lot of you did a wonderful job announcing your name and your piece and starting your performance on camera. I was super just very amazed at the level and the amount of confidence that a lot of you had. So I think you should all be really proud and really happy with the job you did. And I mean, when you think about it, music is probably one of the #1 things to do, especially during pandemic times. Everybody wants to learn an instrument. Everybody wants to play music. So if you're able to play music like this, you're one of the lucky few. So you should all be very happy, and even after the pandemic, just keep practicing, keep learning great music, and keep enjoying your love of music. That's one of the most important things, is to really just keep loving what you're doing, and know that all the little hurdles and things we're learning along the way are just part of learning a musical instrument. I went through all that when I was your age, and I'm really glad that I stuck through it all, and listened to my teacher, practiced a lot of the things meticulously, and listened to my adjudicators. Yay! Of course I had to say that. So anyways, congratulations to all of you, and I hope to hear all of you again soon, maybe at the 2022 Nova Scotia Kiwanis Music Festival. So thanks again, and thank you to the festival for having me as an adjudicator. Have a wonderful weekend, and keep up the good work. Okay, bye-bye.